let's get started. First, I would love to welcome you all, and it's such an honor to have you part of Blex. And it's a place where we're all equal. We have the same passion for inclusion and diversity. I'm really excited to see you all becoming leaders of the future through our business bites, leadership talks, inclusive leadership, and knowledge exchange sessions. And I'm more than happy to just show you a few of our incredible mentors that we have on board. Feel free to check them out, book your mentor session with them using the link in the chat box. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our incredible teams that will help you guide you throughout. And I would love to give a big shout out and thank you to this incredible team that made today happen. Without them, this wouldn't be possible. I'm really excited now to finally present to you our first talk ever around the topic that really facilitates our capacity for resilience, motivation, empathy, stress management, communication, and so much more. And that is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence has changed our speaker life and really impacted her significantly. I'm thrilled to finally introduce you to our speaker, Loubna Wortley. And she's also one of our mentors at Blex. So you got the chance to connect with her one-to-one. Now I'm handing it to you, Loubna.
Super. Thank you so much, Amna. And thanks everyone for joining me today to talk about emotional intelligence. The purpose of the talk today is really not to make you expert in emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is really a lifelong exercise, and we will only be scratching the surface today. What I would like this talk to do is really to trigger some curiosity and some appetite to learn further. So I call this talk Emotional Intelligence. Have I been dumb all this time? And we will hopefully answer this question during the talk today. In terms of agenda, we will first go through the reasons why I have always disregarded emotional intelligence and only nurtured what I call traditional intelligence. We will then look at what does emotional intelligence mean and how is it different to traditional intelligence. And in the third part, we will dive deeper into the benefits provided by emotional intelligence and really why you should care. So let's start with the first part where I will be describing why I have considered traditional intelligence as the only key to success. So I would like to start by telling you a story, by telling you my story. And in order for you to fully grasp it, I need to share more information about my mom and dad. So they were both born in farmers' family in Algeria in the mid-40s. And it was a time of war where Algeria was a French colony and it was fighting for its independence. And as a consequence, my parents never had the chance to go to school or to learn how to read or to write. Fast forward to 1962, Algeria got its independence from France, and France was in need of manpower to rebuild everything. So my dad left everything to start a new life in France and live the American version of or the French version of the American dream, the French dream. It sounds like a lot less sexy said this way, but anyway, he did that. And one thing that always stuck in my head was how my parents would always describe me to family and to their friends, and even today. So bear in mind that out of 7 children, I know, right? I was by far the biggest geek and the most academic one, and so by default the favorite one. But so my parents will always go like, Loubna studied for a very long time. She completed many degrees, and today she works in computers. Now bear in mind that my parents never had a phone or any computer, and believe me when I say I try to tell them a million times what I do. And the ironic thing is that my job has nothing to do with computers except from the fact that I do use one for work, and I think everyone does. But anyway, you must be wondering, why am I telling you that? Why am I sharing that with you? Well, because of where they came from and what they had lived through, my parents always taught us to work hard and absorb literally everything we could at school, as they never had that opportunity. And so I followed that path and completed, one degree after another in philosophy, art, history, literature. Sorry, that's my dog. You'll probably see him star at some point in the video. I did one master in marketing and another one in international business. And then I decided, okay, now it's time to, make some money. So what my parents hadn't realized, and neither did I until I started to actively work on emotional intelligence, is that more than enabling me to acquire traditional or cognitive intelligence with diplomas and certificate, they created the best environment possible for emotional intelligence to flourish. And the reality is that a lot of us have worked really hard to foster traditional intelligence, and very little of us ever paid attention to emotional intelligence as a powerful strength. Sorry, so hopefully my dog is not too much of if that becomes too much, I'll go and talk to him. That's probably someone delivery a package. That brings us to the second part of my talk, and the bigger part of the talk, where we will be defining what traditional intelligence is and how is it different to emotional intelligence. Traditionally, intelligence, talent, success, they have exclusively referred to quantifiable, technical, and cognitive capabilities. So that would be, for instance, your math grade at uni. And in the 90s, Peter Salovey and John Mayer coined the term emotional intelligence, and they describe it as a form of social intelligence that involves the ability to monitor one's own and others' feelings and to discriminate among them, and to use this information to guide one's thinking and action. A few years later, in his book Emotional Intelligence, Daniel Goleman went even further, and he positioned emotional intelligence as being far superior to cognitive intelligence to assess an employee's performance or even to assess an entire business success. Daniel Goleman identifies 5 elements that forms emotional intelligence, and that's basically the basis of any literature we can find today around emotional intelligence. So what are those 5 elements? The first one is self-awareness. And so self-awareness refers to the capability to identify and accept one's thoughts and emotions, whether they're positive or whether they're ones that we're less comfortable with. Emotions just are, and we need to embrace them. And you're going to hear me repeat that a lot, but I really want you to live with that thought in your mind. And so understanding the information that emotions are giving us instead of trying to bury them is extremely powerful. And so if we take one example of self-awareness, that would be being able to recognize and accept the feeling of being envious towards someone else. And that could be for whatever reason, better job, better position. Instead of, ignoring it and being, sad or not happy about it, acknowledge it, accept it, and put an action plan together to help you become closer to that person's position. Why don't you actually go and talk to that person to share some tips? What should you do, to accelerate your journey to achieve that position? The second one is self-regulation, and that's probably the toughest one for me. So self-regulation is this capacity to manage our emotions and to avoid acting on impulse. And one example of that, and I'm sure we've all been through that, if you receive an email or a text message that create a whole lot of emotions, it is safe to say that you're better off not replying on the spot. Let it sink in, reflect on it, and go back to it a few hours later. I can guarantee you that whatever reply you will send after some reflection time will be at least a million times better, and you won't have any regret around it. So the third one is internal motivation. One of my favorite one. So how much energy do we all spend thinking about everything that can go wrong, when we could use the same amount of energy to make the desired outcome happen? So for instance, it's a bit ironic, but when I was preparing for this talk, I was actually thinking, what if, the link doesn't work, or what if people cannot connect with every point? And then I was like, well, you're presenting about emotional intelligence, get your things together. And this is why I was saying that emotional intelligence is a lifelong exercise. We are human and we are people, and by nature we are forgetful, so it's good to understand the concept, and it's even better to work on it and apply it. Another example would be, how much energy do we all spend thinking about the things we don't excel at? Internal motivation is about fighting all of those instincts. And so I would like to start, practicing a bit of internal motivation with you guys. And if you don't mind, grabbing some paper and a pen, I would like you to write down a list of the things you are good at and appreciate it. So let's take a minute to do that now. Don't go on your phone. I might lose you to Instagram. And be creative. Being good at washing the dishes is something to be very proud of. I'm absolutely, so Chris, my husband, always wash the dishes after me. Okay, so hopefully you guys had a chance to write a few ideas. This list is supposed to be a living list and organic list. So, go back to it. And when you have more time, add everything you can think about. And whenever you're like, oh, well, I'm not so good at coding, go back to that list and read it and be proud, because you're awesome at so many things already. Okay. So the fourth and fifth element, unlike the first three that we're looking at the inside, the fourth and fifth element are looking at the outside, and they are empathy and social skills. So this really refers to this capability of connecting with people at an emotional level, and also being able to build a healthy relationship with people around us. If we look at COVID-19, this whole thing has completely changed the way we interact with one another, with everything or almost everything being virtual now. And it has also created an explosion of all sorts of emotions. I'm sure that there were times where we were scared for the health of our family, of our friends. Some of my friends, and I'm sure some of your friends, were made redundant, were put on furlough schemes. Others had to combine work with homeschooling, with nursery. And so, in those difficult times, emotional intelligence helped me greatly to connect with colleagues, but also with customers and partners, with my family, despite being far apart. And so, as an example, um, I always spend the first 5 to 10 minutes of my work meeting, and even if it's 30 minutes, but I always spend that time asking about how the person is doing, how how was their holiday, being curious about it, asking about their family. And it's not the case of, hey, how are you doing? I'm all right. Okay, the agenda for today is. No, not at all. It's about being genuine. It's about caring about the person in front of you and being able to connect with that person. I think we all had those fun moments where family joined our work calls unexpectedly. So I've seen a lot of kids running in the background. In my case, it would be my dog, jumping on my lap. But I think, the best example was when I was in, I went to stay with my mom in France for a month. And so that was when I started my new role as a alliance lead for Intel and AWS for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And so bear in mind that I was, giving a presentation about Intel and AWS collaboration to the AWS sales field. And I was talking about, the work that we're doing together, the programs that we have in place, so very serious. And I had my camera on, and my mom, bless her, I was talking. She was completely oblivious of that. So she came and she brought me a bowl of freshly cut fruits. So you had the webcam there, me talking here, and so she put the bowl of fruits there while I was talking. So I have to say, on the spot, I froze for a few seconds. I was like, what? But actually, when I realized that some people were taking their mute button off to let me hear that they were laughing. And thinking about it now, that was probably the best way to connect with people that I've never met before. And now everyone knows my mom as well. So reflecting on those 5 elements, I think that ultimately emotional intelligence can be summarized in 2 blocks. So the first one is understanding of oneself, and the second one is understanding of others. And we'll jump on the understanding of oneself part first. Think about that. How can we build a harmonious rapport with people if we cannot appreciate what's happening inside of us, within us? But equally, critiquing oneself is difficult, and nobody wants to be in that position. So we just ignore the information that emotions are giving us. Why do we do that? We do that because when it comes to emotions, we feel the need to categorize them as good and bad. And bad emotions give us, the impression that we have zero control. So I started my journey to understand myself, and maybe that could be some source of inspiration for you guys as well, by doing 2 things. First one was to stop labeling my emotions as good and bad. They just are, and they are giving me valuable insights. And honestly, this is much harder to do than it sounds. So try it. The second one is to accept the loss of control. It is okay to be scared, stressed, etc., panic. I actually watched, so on Netflix, there is a series called The Mind Explained, and it's really a great series. It's very short, 20 minutes episode, but they address, questions that we've all been asking ourselves, how dreams work, for instance. One of the episodes dealt with anxiety disorders, and during that episode, they showed a monk, and that monk described the way he welcomes all of his emotions. And really, one sentence got stuck in my mind. Whenever he feels like he's panicking, he will say out loud, "Hello, panic. Hello, my friend," with a big smile. I thought he was crazy when I saw that. But then, after thinking about it, I understood that there are things we cannot control, but we can decide how we feel about them. Meaning that instead of panicking about the fact that you're panicking and going into that vicious circle, accept the fact that you're panicking, and this will help you calm down. So this really changed the way I handled stress, and I picked up on 3 further activities to develop the understanding of myself. And again, I hope that those activities could be additional example and tips for you. So the first one was dedicating time to exercise. That helped me greatly in positive thinking. I think, with COVID-19, before that, I used to go into London, go to the gym, and then go to work. And then we were in lockdown. And I think, at some point, we all became like a couch potato. I think that's the right English expression. Um, so I decided to actually dedicate 30 minutes every day to some form of exercise. So that could be going for a 5K run, or that could be, following a yoga session. There are plenty of tutorial on YouTube. Or lately, I got a Peloton bike, so I will redo the same rides to, push myself and always have a better score. And, at a very high level, exercising will help you get rid of stress hormones. It will help you feel more self-confident. It will improve your sleep. So if it's not part of your cadence and daily routine, please think about how you can integrate that in your routine. Second activity, sorry, is spending time outdoors. I love going on wood walks, and we do that every single day with my husband and my dog Ace, who is as big as I am, and you'll probably see him at some point. But for me, this is the perfect opportunity to move away from all of our digital worlds. We always glued to a screen, be it the TV or the laptop or the tablet or the phone or your smartwatch. And so, going on those countryside walk, appreciating the sun, and today's a great day for that. Singing to listening to the birds, thinking simple things, but that has a real calming effect on me, and that foster positive thinking. A friend of mine, he lived in his village for X amount of years, never been on a countryside walk. After COVID, um, he downloaded the app called Footpath, and he discovered that there are over 70 footpaths in the village where he lives in. So that could be a good tip. Download the app and look at, what are the footpaths around you. Third one, finally, I picked up on meditation, or in my case, it's more daily prayers. And so this enables me to do regular checks on my emotions, but this also helped me develop the other block of emotional intelligence, which is understanding others. So let's dive a bit deeper in that one. Growing up in a family of 9, including my parents, had one big key advantage. I had the great opportunity to develop and sharpen my interpersonal and negotiation skills from a very young age. I'm number 6 out of 7, and so as you can tell, I'm not the oldest, I'm not the youngest. I wasn't in a position of power at all. So I needed to be smart, and I needed to be a good observer. And I learned how to read my siblings' body language very quickly. When your parents are there and you're communicating with your siblings with no words, that's just amazing. Actually, more than 50% of human to human interaction is body language. And I think this is just amazing because we express, we we say more with our body and being silent than actually using words. So across the years, I continued to develop empathy and social skills by doing all sorts of things. But the basic, showing compassion, being kind, being grateful for every little things, thanking people, or just smiling. Um, so to conclude this second part on what is emotional intelligence, we can say that emotional intelligence is definitely not something you're born with. It's something you can develop if you choose to and if you dedicate time to it. I do believe that people with diverse cultural backgrounds are exposed to a lot of emotional intelligence. So, we grew up with at least 2 different cultures. We grew up with somehow 2 different forms of emotional intelligence, and that is super enriching. So for me, my parents are Algerian, so I'm both Algerian, and I was born and I grew up in France, so I also grew up with that amazing culture. But it also taught me how to adapt, how to show empathy, and how to adapt my social skills to different culture or different people, and developing that observer skills as well. I wouldn't express social skills, in Algeria the same way as I will do with, French colleagues or French friends. And so if I take another example, with my family, we've always been through tough challenges as one, but we could also rely on a wider community, and we would share everything, no matter how small that thing will be. And I remember when I was at school, I used to have so many friends, actually classmates, that would come and have lunch at my parents'. So we used to live very close to my school. And when they will come, it was a rotation mechanism, but when they'll come for lunch, my mom will never call them by their names. She will call my girlfriends by my daughter, and she'd be like Benti Kuli, which means my daughter, eat. And so the boys, she will call them my son. She would not shake their hands. She would hug them and kiss them 4 times. So I have to say, right, if you're not from an African background, it can be quite intense as a first meeting. But having said that, they would always ask, how quickly can we come back? And so this is how my mom, via our culture, would express her love, her empathy, kindness to people. And I'm sure all of us have been either on the giving or receiving end of those amazing experiences. So let's now move to the third and last part of the talk, where we will cover the benefits of emotional intelligence. So what are the benefits of emotional intelligence, and why should you care? So for me, spending time learning and practicing emotional intelligence helped me both at a personal and at a professional level. So at a personal level, the major two benefits I gained are clarity and focus, as well as health improvement. Being able to identify and accept and process my emotions brought a lot of clarity and inner peace to me. So I lost my dad 9 months ago and went through different phases of, ignoring my feelings, refusing what had happened, to actually, accept my sadness and accept the fact that, it's okay to feel that, that I felt lost. I'm super grateful though that, I started learning about emotional intelligence about 3, 4 months before that. And so, when it happened, what I did is I built a list of positive things linked to my dad. And now, even today, I'll go back to that list and I'll cherish like all of the moments that we had together. I also put like some expression that he would invent, like a part in French, one part in Algerian, some in Spanish, some in Italian. And yeah, he always loved making everyone laugh. But also, being grateful that he saw me get married and he met with 15 of his grandchildren. None are my kids. I only have a dog. So the other powerful strength that emotional intelligence helped me greatly with is health. Okay, so emotional intelligence improves both mental and physical health. When we think about anxiety and depression, they are often linked to emotional difficulties. And those emotional difficulties will then lead to health problems like lack of sleep or eating disorders. A friend of mine was going through a very stressful period at work, and he developed a very severe pain in the neck, and he went to the physio many times. And at the end, the physio told him, I can only help you with the pain for the following 24 hours, but ultimately you need to address what is the source of your stress. So that friend, changed role, changed company, moved on, and his neck pain completely disappeared. And so the reason why I'm mentioning that, the reason why I am mentioning those examples is because we tend to underestimate the power and the weight of emotions on our body and our mind. At a professional level, emotional intelligence is a powerful tool to make you a successful employee. Being able to connect with people and build harmonious relationship is a key ingredient to build trust, positivity, cohesion within a team, but also with a customer. I spent the last 5 years in sales, and I can tell you that if you're only worried about making your number and closing your deals, you're not going to be a successful salesperson. It's all about connecting with your customer at an emotional level, understanding what is driving them, and then build a healthy, sustainable, long, and trustful relationship. At a leadership level, leaders showing empathy is really what set them aside, and leaders will make us work harder, they will foster loyalty. And I'm sure that if I ask you today to name one person you consider a leader, you are very unlikely to give me your boss's name. It might be, but very unlikely. You will think about a person that inspires you, a person that you can connect with. So at a professional level, emotional intelligence also helped me get out of my comfort zone. And me presenting to you today without having a panic attack on the floor is a life proof that it works. When you're facing a stressful situation, it could be because you're presenting publicly, or it could be because you're presenting to your team for the first time. You basically lose your prefrontal cortex capabilities for a very short amount of time. But that part of your brain is responsible for the highest order of cognitive abilities. And so when you enter a stressful situation, you basically freeze for a few seconds. However, what happens after that biological mechanism that freezes your brain for a few seconds, whatever happened after that is down to you. So think about that. If you're stressed, it's because you want to be stressed. And understanding this helped me a lot. And of course, it's not like a switch on and off button, but actually understanding the rationale behind it helped me calm down and be more self-confident when presenting. So to close this third part on emotional intelligence benefits, we can say that we are a sum of emotions, and emotions take a huge part in the decisions we take in every aspect of our life. And understanding them will help us make smarter decisions both at work and at home, both at an individual, personal, and at a personal level. And so to conclude this talk, it has been quite a journey for me so far. Before coming across emotional intelligence, the only form of intelligence I thought was worth developing is what we called traditional or cognitive intelligence. But after actively working on emotional intelligence, I realized it is a very powerful strength and key differentiator, especially in your career. I can tell you that a lot of people can achieve the same task. What will make the difference is how do you get there? How do you interact with colleagues? How can you build trust? How can you build relationship? And so this is all the more true today when we see a lot of jobs being replaced by automation and AI, for instance. So I truly believe that we all have a hidden gem inside of us, and I don't care how cheesy that sounds. This is a beautiful image, and I think it really describes what I want to say here. We all have a hidden gem inside of us, and it's really up to us to take time and polish it, right? So to answer the title of my talk, emotional intelligence, have I been dumb all this time? Well, I like to think that the answer is no, but I was definitely blind to a fantastic resource that our emotions are and make us who we are. So when is the last time yet that you took 1 hour or 10 minutes to reflect on your emotions? Have you ever done it? Okay, so I guess the answer is no to both. Here's my ask for you. Think about the 5 elements of emotional intelligence we mentioned today. Self-awareness, self-regulation, internal motivation, empathy, and social skills. Don't worry, I'm going to repeat them. But I want you to select one or two. Write it down, and then we're going to think about three things you can do today to help improve this one or those two elements. Okay? So, self-awareness, self-regulation, internal motivation, empathy, and social skills. We're short in time, so I'll give you 1 minute, but at least select the one that you want to spend more time on. So I'll repeat them one last time. So self-awareness, self-regulation, internal motivation to look at the inside, and empathy and social skills to look at the outside. Okay. So I really hope that, we can all, or at least, one person will be able to extract some learning or some tips from me sharing my story today. And I really hope that, the end of this talk will mark the start of your own emotional intelligence journey. And on this note, I'd like to thank you again for taking the time to come today. And I'm going to pass it over to Yomna, and she will share with you the amazing speakers we have in line for you and the very exciting topics that we'll be covering in the next few weeks.
Thank you so much, Loubna. First of all, a big thank you to Loubna. We, I'm sure everyone resonated with your talk, especially during this pandemic and during these difficulties. Uncovering and unleashing the hidden gem within us is just so powerful. Please, everyone, feel free to share your key takeaways from today's Loubna by using our hashtag Blex Network, and also tag us on social media because we would love to hear from you. And as you said, this is a talk. This is just this pre-starting point, and it comes to you all to make a decision today and to start implementing, taking actions.